Good morning. My name's Neil Boris. I am a member of this church, a member of the worship team, and your worship associate for this morning. And I'm pleased to be here, as always. We have a terrific service today, and involved in this event are Reverend Margalie Belizaire, our DLRE, Judith Stein-Farrall, our choir director, Aubrey Connelly-Candelario, and one of our board members, Paul Knight. And of course, we wish to give great gratitude to all of the wonderful 1U teams whose efforts together ensure that we are able to gather in worship this morning. You, all of you, make this happen. Now today, please note that while children are always welcome to join us in the service, the nursery is open to toddlers through pre-K, Sunday mornings starting at 9:30. Our children are with us this morning and will be sung out for supervised free play after the time for all ages this morning. We welcome all to join us as we explore our Unitarian Universalist faith, which draws us into a community of justice seekers with a commitment to lifelong spiritual growth and compassionate service to the community. Whoever you are, whoever you love, you are welcome here. You are welcome here, regardless of your color, national origin, gender, sexual orientation, age, physical or mental abilities, economic status, or religious background. We, this congregation, welcome you. Now you can find much information about our congregation and the announcements that I'm going to go through this morning at our website, orlandouu.org, and you can also email us at info@orlandouu.org. Please reach out. Today we have two special announcements. The first is that next week, on June 4th, Sunday, we will have our Flowers Communion service. Flowers. We look forward to having you all here to join us on what will be the 100th anniversary of this ritual, and we invite you to bring flowers with you. Together, we will make a display. So that's next Sunday, June 4th. The other thing to announce is that now is a terrific time to pre-order, yes, pre-order people, your 1U t-shirts. Check the weekly update for more information. See our program assistant, Gabby, wave Gabby in the back for more information, and obviously up there as well on the screen is our QR code where you can connect to us, and that's really helpful. All the other announcements are on slides before and after the service. We have links in the weekly update or on our website, and you can use this very same QR code to pull up the order of service for today. Please note that the link to the weekly update is at the bottom of your order of service, and you can gain access to that, again, on the pew in front of you. There's a QR code in an envelope. We're all high-tech here, people, now. This is good stuff. So I thank you all for being here in person, and those of you online, and we will now move toward our chalice lighting.
Please join me as we read our chalice lighting. In the light of truth and in the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. And please rise in body and spirit, and join me in singing our opening hymn, number 6, just as long as I have breath. The words will be projected on the screen.
Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment pierced me through, still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes to love.
It is so good to be with you here this morning in community, this last Sunday in May. And the second half of May, many important events happened, such as Harvey Milk, gay rights activist, was born on May 22nd. Emerson, May 25th. Rosie the Riveter, famous picture by Norman Rockwell, first appeared on the cover of the Saturday Night Evening Post on May 29th. The American Unitarian Association, not UU, that was founded in May 25, 1825, the one half of the UU. And of course, the next ones, of course, it is pansexual and Pan-Romantic Awareness and Visibility Day is May 24th, so next week. And of course, tomorrow is Memorial Day, so I'm asking us to observe a moment of silence, honoring the people who died while serving in the U.S. military. So take a moment of silence. May we remember the sacrifices that they made for us to be able to be here in this country. And I call us to worship with the words of Sean Parker Dennison, Letter from Our Better Angels. Dear one, we have received your letter, and we hate to tell you, well, not hate so much, but are afraid to say, we cannot grant your requests as stated, but can only remind you of familiar things. Faith. Faith in yourself and trust in others. We know it can be terrifying to be vulnerable, but only when you share your softest side will we be able to break through. Next. Hope. Hope is not an empty fairy tale. It is the true story of all the times human beings like you have found a way to create the future, though you didn't know how. And of course, love. Love that demands you cherish all people, not just yourself and safety. Love is not satisfied until every argument ends abruptly with one child says, "That hurts." There is so much to learn and relearn. The world teaches you to be hard, to negotiate and defend, to avoid giving too much and to the wrong people. There are no wrong people. You also are not wrong, and when you encounter the poor, the broken, the unhoused, and unwelcome, you are looking, if you pay attention, at us, calling you to answer your own prayers. If you want to change the world, first be sure you are changing yourself. Be tender, be kind, be at peace. Be all the things you wish for. Be your own better self. It isn't without cost, but it will be free. Beloveds, as you are reminded of familiar things, let's come together and worship, and let's greet one another this morning. Good morning. There we go. Okay. Good morning. I'm the Director of Lifespan Religious Enrichment, in case there are people here that don't know who the heck I am, and I forgot my badge. So there we are. I'm going to offer a time for all ages this morning, and I wanted to welcome any children or children at heart who might like to join us up here on the carpeting this morning and just be comfy cozy and while I challenge y'all. But I'm going to stand back a little bit this morning. Thank you for coming up. I love it when y'all do this. There's lots of room for you here. All right. So I have a question. This is cardstock. What color do you all see? No, this isn't, you're wrong. Folks, is this green? No. I'm telling you, you're wrong. So there, and I'm always right. What do you think of that? What do you all think of that? What are your choices when I tell you something is wrong, that you're not right? I'm entitled to my opinion. Karen. Say it again. Okay. Well, okay. You asked to ask what my perspective is on this. That's really cool. What else? Woo! What about y'all? What happens? What color do you say this is? Green. Do you all agree it's green? Y'all, it's not. It's orange. They said it's orange. Oh, maybe because of the lighting, they see orange?
Oh, maybe? It's a very bright orange, they said. Yeah. Any other ideas about how to have a conversation about this?
Why are you asking that question?
Oh, wow. And why am I asking the question? Because I'm curious about how you see my world. I'm a one-way thinker. I'm not giving you well, why do you say it's green? Are there what? It's one piece of cardstock. But it's a good question. What do I see? I don't see green. I see orange. Me too. Well, maybe pinkish orange. Yeah, very bright pink orange. What?
Is there something wrong with your eyes?
Perhaps, yeah. Oh. So what happens if I say something one way and you say something the other? How can we get along on this? What do we have to have a standstill? What? There, everyone's ahead of me. Orange, you're changing your mind? Am I convincing you it's orange? Have you learned that this is orange in school? This is green. Tiger, go. If you know a truth, am I going to convince you just by telling you it's not? No. Right. But by having a conversation, maybe what could happen? Neil says, get a new perspective.
Look at both sides.
Look at both sides. No. This is a discussion about how to consider a discussion where you not in agreement. That's it. Thank you for joining my Time for All Ages. Ultimately, what happens if you don't ask questions, right? What happens if you get to hear only my side of the story? Right? What happens if we still don't agree? Can we still be in the same room? Maybe. All right, please join us now at supporting our children as they leave to join me and the RE child care team in the Enrichment Center courtyard for cereal and free play. They will proceed under the bridge of loving arms as we sing This Little Light of Mine.
I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
I have the pleasure now of calling forward one of our board members, Paul Knight, as we get to our invitation to generosity.
Got this fancy iPad thing here. So yes, I am Paul Knight. I am president-elect for the Board of Trustees here at 1U. Why, thank Wow. I have to stand up here and tell jokes more often. As we do each Sunday, we invite each and every one of us to participate in the practice of generosity. It is for sure one of our spiritual values. And that spiritual value helps us sustain the life of this congregation and the ministries of the church and the community and the programs that we provide. Let us be grateful for the opportunity to give, for it is a privilege to be able to do so. And let us be grateful for our own needs, for they give us the opportunity to practice receiving. Today's collection will go to the ministries of this congregation. We have a lot of different ways to go to donate. We have the QR code. We have the website. You can send a check. You can drop off cash. You can text. Or just throw it up in the air. We'll catch it as it comes down. As we do each month, we have a Share the Plate partner. And for the month of May, it is the New Image Youth Center. You can use the link in the newsletter or on the screen to donate directly to them. And if you do, please let us know that you donated. This offering will now be collected. And as always, if you are online watching, please use the online link if you would like to donate as well. Thank you, Aubrey. Let us joyfully receive what is offered here today in the spirit of gratitude and fellowship.
This is the time we set aside for a deep sharing of our hearts and for prayer and meditation. If you have a sorrow that you need witnessed or help with, or a joy that you wish to share, please contribute to our collective sharing of joy and sorrows to be read each Sunday during worship. You can email to us during the week at joysandconcerns@orlandouu.org, or if you are attending in person, you can fill out a card at the welcome table outside, and the greeters will make sure we get it here so we can share your joy or concern with the congregation. And sometimes it's both, right? And we also offer you the opportunity to participate in our candle lighting ritual toward the end. So bring your joys, bring your sorrows as we come together here in this sanctuary. Come as you are. Your whole self is welcome here as we co-create sacred space together. We have a couple of joys and concerns from the community. The flowers, these beautiful flowers here today, are in honor of all the U.S. military personnel who gave their lives while serving in the U.S. Armed Forces for American values and ideals. This is from the flower team, of course. This is an entry that was submitted, I think it was during the service last week, so we didn't get a chance to share it, so we're sharing it today. Cody Johnson shares, "Happy second birthday to Sage Meehan. Your existence is a blessing." We also have a sorrow from the community. That longtime member Carla Kizort has said goodbye to her younger brother Brad, who died of brain cancer this week. Carla requests no calls, but text and cards are welcome. So in addition to that, I encourage us to send loving kindness and healing energy to Carla and the rest of her family. We hold the fears and sorrows of all who are affected from wars, from other situations that are beyond their control. There's so much suffering in the world. It is for us to find the moments of joy and claim those as well. Let us send loving kindness to all those in crisis, those in pain and are suffering, and for all the joys and sorrows shared and those held close to the heart. Let us pray, let us celebrate, and let us send one another healing energy. And I invite you to silently meditate on the words of Rosemary Watola Trummer. Sit as comfortably as you can. Close your eyes if that feels good for you, or have them slightly at a gaze, looking ahead of you. Over and over, we break open. We break and we break. For a while, we try to fix the vessel as if the broken is bad, as if glue and tape and a steady hand, we might bring things to perfect again, as if they were ever perfect, as if to be broken is not also perfect, as if to be broken is not the path towards joy. The vase that has been shattered and cracked will never hold water. Eventually it will leak, and at some point perhaps we decide that we're done with picking our flowers anyway and no longer need a place to contain them. We watch them grow just as wildflowers do, unfenced, unmanaged, blossoming only when they're ready. And oh my God, how beautiful they are amidst the mounting pile of shards. We now invite you to come forward, if you are so willing and able, to participate in our candle lighting ritual. It is both an invitation and an opportunity to challenge us to go inward, to connect with our center, to see what might be stirring up for you. I hope you accept this invitation to participate in this ritual. Come forward as you are willing and able. In March, just a couple of months ago, during our congregational meeting, we voted on and adopted the 8th principle. Journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural community, beloved community, by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. In the months that preceded the vote, I became aware of many discussions in the background about the 8th principle, whether or not it should be adopted, whether or not it would be in conflict with Article 2 of the UUA bylaws that is to be voted on at the national level at the end of June, or even whether or not the 8th principle is right for us at the First Unitarian Church of Orlando, and so on. In other words, there were several members who opposed this principle for different reasons. So as the board and I prepared for the congregational meeting, we were intentional about making time for discussions. We shortened the agenda. Those of us who were scheduled to speak agreed that we would limit our time at the podium. Items that were considered of less importance were removed from the agenda since they could be found in the board minutes. We also made it so that voting would be unanimous, so people could really feel the freedom to vote their heart. All of this that I've mentioned was to make space for a robust discussion and conversations around the 8th principle. All of this was to make space for everyone to be heard, because we understood this was an important matter that the congregation would be voting on. However, to my surprise, when the time came for discussion, few people took the opportunity to speak, and among those who spoke, all spoke in favor of the 8th principle. No one who opposed it spoke up. And as I said, this surprised me, yes, but it also concerned me. Full disclosure, I think the 8th principle is good. It's a good tool, not just for 1U, but for Unitarian Universalism in general. I think it gives us a way to do, as Bob Marley said a long time ago in the song Redemption Song, emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. I believe this principle, the 8th principle, if we choose to undertake the work it invites us into, has the potential to once and for all free our minds and our faith from the shackles of racism. Though I am for the 8th principle, at the same time, you might have noticed that I did not lead the work toward the vote of the 8th principle. It was the 8th principle team that led the efforts. I showed up when and where they asked me to. I wanted the decision to be truly that of the congregation, and not one member felt pressured by their minister to vote in a particular way. After the principle was adopted, I did check to see if the vote was unanimous. Knowing that there were oppositions, I was glad to learn that there were some votes against it, and that we affirmed and promoted the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregation here. Hopefully, everyone felt able to vote their conscience. Even so, that no one openly spoke against the 8th principle kept gnawing at me. I wondered about our ability to have difficult conversations, even argue in this community. I submit that in order for a religious community to be healthy, its members need to be able to discuss and even argue about hard things. Arguing is not an indicator of unhealthiness if it's done with pure intentions, and we'll talk more about what I mean by pure intentions a little later. And even as I continued to reflect on our ability to have difficult conversations within our community, another incident occurred that propelled me to invite us into this conversation here today. Many of you have probably heard by now that a member who had been in several leadership roles in our community resigned from our congregation last month, suddenly and unexpectedly. I and a few other people received the email, and this was apparently a decision he had been in long and deep discernment about. Yet, from my understanding, whatever the issue was for him, it was not something he could discuss with anyone in what was his religious community, not his minister, not his colleagues in leadership, not those who considered him a friend. For we were all left shocked and dumbfounded as to why this community no longer met his religious needs. Granted, we are all on our own spiritual journey, and sometimes a path no longer works for us. And what we aspire to do in UU communities is support, encourage, and accept one another in our spiritual growth in our congregations. Part of that, I believe, is creating spaces where when something hard and difficult happens to us, we have avenues to unburden, to discuss, to argue if that's what's needed. Have we created that here? So, because of all that, consequently, I've been reflecting a lot on the concept of arguments for the sake of heaven and how it might be a resource for us as a religious community in having important and difficult conversations, not only on issues that impact the entire community or even the larger community, but about our own struggles as well. Arguments for the sake of heaven is a concept deeply rooted in Judaic tradition. And since this is not a history lesson, some of it will be missed, but rest assured that the gist of the concept will be made clear here. This way of entering into an argument, that is, arguing for the sake of heaven, not only encourages open dialogue and debate, but also provides a framework for engaging in important and difficult conversations with respect, empathy, and the pursuit of truth. In the Jewish tradition, arguments for the sake of heaven are known as Makoloket L'Shem Shemayu, which I'm sure I mispronounced. The phrase implies that these debates or disagreements are not mere conflicts of ego, of personal interest, but rather they are centered on a higher purpose, on the pursuit of divine truth and understanding. This concept recognizes that engaging in healthy and respectful dialogue can lead us to greater wisdom and growth as individuals and as a community. As UUs, we cherish the diversity of beliefs, perspectives, experiences within our communities. We celebrate the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and we seek to honor the interconnectedness of all beings. This, most of us see, is a good thing, and I concur. At the same time, diversity, which is part of how we do religion, can inevitably result in the encounter of different opinions and conflicting ideas. This is why this concept is so well suited for our faith tradition. And here, I'm not talking about what Reverend Nancy McDonald Ladd referred to in her sermon at General Assembly 2016 as fake fights. In her sermon, she noted that the collective wisdom of the ages reminds us that the stakes are too high, and the ultimate prize we must reach out for in our community is greater than the imagined divisions and trumped-up arguments that pulls us apart. She invited us all at that time, as I invite you now, to keep away from every fake fight in our congregation and in our movement about getting what we want or what we think we want, because the stakes are too high and we don't have time for fake fights. And like her, I believe that such arguments really are keeping us away from the real conversations that are waiting to happen. Just beneath the surface of the fake fights is the actual encounter, soul to soul, hand to hand, in which change is possible. The concept Arguments for the Sake of Heaven can help us achieve that. First and foremost, Arguments for the Sake of Heaven reminds us that we are all fallible beings. None of us possesses the ultimate truth or holds a monopoly on wisdom. Recognizing our own limitations opens the door for dialogue and invites us to approach discussions with humility and genuine desire to learn from one another. Furthermore, this concept calls us to engage in discussion with respect and with empathy. It encourages us to listen attentively to others, seeking to understand their perspective rather than dismissing them outright. Through active listening, we not only validate the experiences and beliefs of others, but also create an environment where fruitful and transformative conversations can take place. Argument for the Sake of Heaven also teach us the importance of intellectual honesty and integrity. In the pursuit of truth, we must be willing to examine our own beliefs critically and be open to changing our minds when presented with compelling arguments. This principle encourages us to base our arguments on reason, evidence, and compassion, rather than personal attacks or emotional manipulation. In our Unitarian Universalist communities, we have a unique opportunity to embody the spirit of Arguments for the Sake of Heaven by creating safe spaces for difficult conversations. We can establish guidelines for dialogue that encourage respectful engagement, active listening, and the recognition that our disagreements are rooted in our genuine desire for greater understanding and growth. By embracing this Judaic idea, we foster an environment where disagreement do not divide us, but rather serve as catalysts for deeper connections and shared insights. These conversations enable us to bridge the gaps between our diverse beliefs, experiences, and backgrounds, and ultimately lead us toward a more comprehensive and nuanced understanding of our shared humanity. I invite you now to reflect on this question for a few seconds. Keeping in mind the two examples we started with, and drawing from your own experience here at 1U, what are some of the barriers that might be keeping us from having difficult conversations in this community? What are some of the barriers that might be keeping us from having difficult conversations in our community here? I'm going to ask you to just call out some of those barriers if you feel willing and able. And Neil here will repeat some of them for those online to hear what is being shared here. If you're willing and able, just call some of them out. Go ahead, Joan.
If it's personnel related, we can't talk about it openly. If it's personnel, you got it? If it's personnel related,
don't think the mic's on. If it's personnel related, we can't talk about it openly. Oh, okay.
Creating discord and discomfort.
This is working. Oh. Creating discord and discomfort. Fear of rejection. Fear of being judged. Wanting to keep the peace.
Fear of offending.
Fear of offending.
Being sure that your opinion is absolutely right.
Being sure that your opinion is absolutely right.
Lack of example of disagreement within the community, lack of role modeling disagreement within the community.
Lack of examples of seeing how we handle disagreements in the community. Discomfort talking about money. We'll take one more if there's another. Thank you for sharing, and I wanted to add a couple that I did not necessarily hear. Trusting in the board maybe and in the leadership, minister, trusting of one another. Not feeling safe enough to be brave in the community, unwillingness to be wrong, which is, in a way, what Kay mentioned. Maybe not feeling a part of the community, not feeling that ownership of the community. And somebody else also mentioned discomfort. And I want to mention another that I don't think anyone would have mentioned, or maybe it was even thought of, but I wanted to mention that you have a Black minister. What? This is a first for all of you. And those who were part of the startup at the beginning of the church here, remember that Lillian mentioned that you might need to explore what having a Black minister might mean for you as a community. And this is one area where that this might be manifesting, right? When it comes to having open discussion, especially those around, say, racial justice. It is possible that you don't know how to comfortably speak on certain topics in the presence of said Black minister, especially if it involves racially charged topics, as was the case of the 8th principle. And I get it. I can't say that I'm always comfortable speaking about race in the company of any non-Black people. And maybe you worry that you'd hurt my feelings when it comes to certain topics, right? I hear you and I appreciate that. And using arguments for the sake of heaven can help with that. Also, this is the vocation that I am called to and chose freely. Moreover, I chose to do this, my life's work, that is accompanying people on their spiritual journey in a predominantly white denomination, a denomination that is also called to racial justice among other justice works. So I fully expect to have many, many hard and difficult conversations with people who are in different places on their journey towards wholeness. It is my responsibility to be as prepared as I can be when these much needed arguments or conversations come up. So, I implore you, as Reverend Ladd noted in that same sermon I mentioned earlier, let's have that conversation, the real one, the hard one, the one that requires us to keep showing up. And let's do it with edge and forgiveness, calling out and calling in, calling forth a new kind of community, both in our congregations and the world. The real fight beckons. The real conversation about our history, our identity, our relevance, our resistance. The world does not need another place for like-minded, liberal-leaning people to hang out together and fight about who's in charge. The world does not need a place where you or I or any of us is going to get what we want. What the world needs is a movement like ours to step more fully into a higher calling, that is to serve as an instrument for encounter with one another, with the holy, and with the world, so that we might love more fully and speak more truly and serve with greater efficacy. Beloveds, as we navigate the complexity of our world today, let us remember the power of respectful and meaningful dialogue. Let us embrace arguments for the sake of heaven as a guiding principle, allowing us to transform our interactions and enrich our spiritual journeys. May we always strive to engage in discussions with open hearts and open minds, knowing that through our collective wisdom, we can create a more just, compassionate, and inclusive world. Please rise and bow to your spirit and join me in singing hymn number 1007, There's a River Flowing in My Soul. The words will be projected on the screen.
There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing in my soul.
We leave this gathered community, but we don't leave our connection, our concerns, our care for each other, our service to each other, to the world, and to our faith continues. Until we are together again, friends, be strong, be well, be true, be loving. Reverend Cynthia Landrum. Worship has ended, and now the service truly begins. I have two calls to worship, to action for us. One is to meet one another in that space where the real conversations can happen. And I know that that's not something that can happen overnight, but if we're all willing, we can make that happen. And the second call to action is to register for annual Pulse blood drive that's coming up next week, June 1st. Please make an appointment to donate blood. This is this Thursday here on campus between 8:30 and 1:30. All blood types are greatly needed. And this particular blood drive is dedicated, we do it specifically for, to remember those who were victims of the Pulse nightclub shooting. So For additional information on how to register, see the weekly update.
And now, please say these words with me as we extinguish the chalice. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.